Simple as they are, creating complex systems that even little actions and thoughts can grow into amazing things, sort of like compound interest of one's thoughts. This March, our theme is the flowing of coming and going. In our fast-paced world, filled with constant change and distractions, we invite you to explore how to maintain your inner focus through spiritual practices like meditation, silent reflection, and mindfulness. By awakening from the clutter of everyday thoughts, you can reconnect with your true essence and experience the divinity within, even amidst the continual ebb and flow of life. Recommended book for March is Stillness Speaks, Eckhart Tolle. And when I was listening to it, like, he's got such a still voice, and it almost makes you want to fall asleep. He talks so slow too. Introduce today's speaker. Ever had a moment of clarity only to watch it slip away? April Johnston-Ulrich explores the dance between our imagined identity and our true divine nature, who you are really, and how do we hold on to that truth when the ego tries to pull us back. Join us for I Got It, I Lost It. Help me welcome April.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Wow, what a beautiful day. That wind yesterday. Talk about the winds of change. How many people embraced it, went out and just stood in it. And went, yeah, I'm going with you. I'm surrendering to this day. I surrendered to it by finding a sunny spot and curling up, and then also going and looking at seeds with 1,000 other people in the same small building looking at seeds. There was a fight for Prairie Girl tomatoes. I lost, but I still got some good ones that I'm going to put into the soil, and I'm going to try hollyhocks again. I try hollyhocks every year. Sometimes I get hollyhocks that are this high. Sometimes I get one bloom. I'm going to persevere. I found a new way to do the seeds. And you know what? I'm just going to surrender that $4.50 that seed pack had and just go with it. What I get is what I get, right? And sometimes you just got to let go of that plan, of those beautiful Instagram or Pinterest or whatever you look at for your inspiration for your garden. For those of us who garden, that conversation is coming up right now, even if it's vegetables, herbs, whatever you do. There's something magnificent of putting a seed in the ground, putting a little water on it, and then just leaving it alone, right? Just surrendering that it knows what it's doing, that it has absolutely everything in it that it needs to create, right? Beautiful flowers, smells, experiences for people. It creates an ecosystem for bugs and bees and birds, and it brings joy. There was a study actually done in Oxford that I was just reading about last night that fresh flowers in your home actually increase the mood of people entering the house. It actually did 3 things, but I really remember the mood thing. And because any excuse to buy fresh flowers, I'm totally on it. So, again, it's sort of that thing of beauty. They're cut, so somebody surrendered them. But they still go through, right, that opening and that decay, and we just allow it, right? We just watch this unfoldment, and we get so much joy from it. So why don't we do it with ourselves? Why are we so stuck on pushing those boulders up the hill? Why, when things get tough, Do we think we just need to buckle down a little bit more? We tell our kids, right? Gotta get that nose to the grindstone a little longer. Things come to those who get out there and get at it. And the first one's up, gets the worm or whatever you get for getting up early. I'm not a morning person, can you tell? So the early bird, right? That's the one that gets the worm. I thought whoever wanted the worm, but... So it's that whole concept of our constructs in our society that say we have to do something in order to receive, in order to have a bigger experience, in order to have things come to us. We have to do something. And yet that all involves the small self, right? That little tiny part of you inside. The ego, as some people refer to it, the small self, as other people refer to it, right? So when we get triggered, let's say something comes up, and instantly we're angry, or we're frustrated, or we're thinking about this, right? We leave 2 hours later and we're doing the dishes, and whatever happened is going through our mind, and we're like, well, I should have said this, and I could have said that, and if I had the chance over. So we're living in the past. It's a whole dream state. We're frustrated, we're going through it, we think this is us, we think this is an experience that we're having, and we never stop. Well, a lot of the time we don't stop to go at what's underneath of this. What's happening here? Why am I feeling this way? What exactly is being triggered? Right? So has anybody had this experience where they've had, even somebody cutting them off in traffic and they're thinking about it a half an hour later? Like, how dare they do that to me? Do we ever wonder why sometimes that happens and we're like, oh, that was a close call, and we don't think about it at all? And then another day, we're just in the depths of despair because obviously no one cares about me because that car just cut me off on my way to Walmart, right? And we'll ruminate on it, and we'll tell people. We'll phone people. My favorite one's my sister. Hi, Cindy. Guess what? Somebody cut me off on the way to Walmart, and I was like doing nothing. I was in the right lane, and they just came right over in front of me and turned. And I mean, I'm so lucky I'm alive right now. I could have really hurt the car. And if I had hurt the car, well, we're really not in a position right now to be without the car because we're a one-car family. And you know what that's like. And I've got to get over and help Olivia a lot this week because spring's coming, and she's going to want help. So we create this whole incredible story from something that didn't happen. So I've been doing this a lot lately when people start to tell me about their worries. And I stop and say, okay, you've created a situation in your mind that hasn't happened, and you're freaking out about it. Do you know how crazy this is? Like, think about it. We create these dramas, that stuff that's going to happen in the future. I just know it is. And then we worry about it today. We freak out about it today, right? We are flooding our bodies with chemicals that aren't good for it. We are removing ourselves from attachment to the divine or the presence, and we're freaking out about an imaginary situation. Just think about that. Think about how much of your life you've spent worrying about things that never happened. Absolutely never, and never will. And there's a possibility of it never happening, right? And yet, wow, do we get into this? I mean, it's just wiggles in there, and of course, its favorite time is just when you put your head on the pillow at night. Then they seem like little worms that crawl out of your pillow and are like, hello, and they're in color, and it's your children starving on the street, and it's your house being burned down, and, it's all these scenarios that really, on an average day, probably pretty safe. So we're also really safe here, right? We've got our group, and we know how each other thinks, and we know the philosophy we believe in, and we know what we're so desperately trying to get to. And yet when we go out of here, we probably have a tendency to be a little quiet about our belief systems with those that think it's woo-hoo or think it's a little different. So we almost sometimes have a separation, right, between in ourselves. So all of these things together are what I want to speak about today. Because there's one way to take care of separation, to take care of living in the past, and creating things to worry about in the future, and that is going into the stillness, going into the surrendering, going into the presence. So what is this, April? We talk about practicing the presence all the time at CSL. What is that? Like, what does that feel like? And it's different, honestly, for every one of us, but there is a common thread to it. We cease being what we are. We cease being a mum, a worker, a railroader, a spiritualist, whatever it is, we cease being that. And we're just in consciousness. We're just thinking. We're just sort of floating around. And we're not thinking about our job, and we're not thinking about our kids, and we're not thinking about chores to be done, and we're not thinking about our job. We just are. And it takes some time of sitting and being quiet and being comfortable with being quiet without the judgments sneaking into our mind, without the thoughts getting paid attention to, without the worries all of a sudden becoming something we ruminate about. And that still happens when we're in that place. But the trick is we know what's happening. We're like, oh, there I am, thinking about that again. That's never going to happen. Back to the peace. Oh, I heard the door. One of the dogs wants to go out. Back to the peace. Back to the stillness. So it's interesting because Eckhart Tolle was talking about when we find something, as I was talking about with the car, and somebody cuts us off, we're triggered. Maybe somebody says something they've said to us before, and all of a sudden we react to it. Or we maybe said something to a friend that we've said before, and all of a sudden we snap, and they get very short with us, and we're like, whoa. I wonder what's happening there. I didn't mean to step on your toes. But if we stop and we think about it, the trigger is an amazing thing. It's a wonderful thing. Because it's telling you there's something you need to heal. There's something you need to get into and rip apart and look at. And that's all part of the small self. That's all part of ego. It's all part of the facade in which you present on a daily basis as what you think you are. So we're all playing facades. We're all playing constructs of what we think we want society to think of us as. Our triggers help pull away that facade. They help us rip away the fake that we're trying to put out and get to the real us. And what the joy of the real us is that we're totally aware of what we're doing. So we can't be hurt by it if somebody challenges it. So it's sort of that thing, where I said, if I was to say, Judy, you're a lousy astronaut. Judy would not be offended by that because she's not an astronaut. She never wanted to be. She'd just say, oh, April's kind of lost it today. But if you were to say something that triggers you, then there's a truth attached to it. There's something that you need to look at, as hard as it is. So after you finish, stomp into your room or phoning your sister or whatever. Sometimes it takes some time. Plunk yourself down in a chair and say, okay, what is it? What is it that this is attacking? Right? What is it this I'm offended of? So let's just take a benign situation of that car cutting you off, right? Right in front. I mean, it's so lucky you hit the brakes. You were watching. You would have, crunched this person from behind. So you go home and you're thinking, oh, that was awful. That was such a close call. I didn't need that. And then then you catch yourself doing the runoff thought. You catch yourself creating, oh my gosh, here I am. I'm so far down because I've spiraled with this thing. I got to stop that. None of that happened. I was fine. I stopped. I was driving a good distance. Even when they pulled in, I was fine, right? Sometimes I create a story so I can have empathy with the person that cut me off. So I think, oh, maybe they need cataract surgery and they just didn't see me in their rearview mirror. Or, maybe their parent is passing and this is their time to get to them. So I create little stories in my head to have empathy for what this person did. That was my first trick. That's just to calm down my little fright and flight scenario. And then I think, why did this bother me? Why did it upset me? Why did I think that person doing this was a judgment on me? So you sit with that, and it's not comfortable. It's not comfortable because the more we start to work on the small self, the more the mind gets in there and says, no way, get out of the way. This is my area and you're not touching it. Because when we touch these areas, the mind becomes very insecure and it wants to throw more crap at you. Because the mind's job is to keep you alive. It's to look for danger. So it's the first thing it's going to be giving you are the problems and the danger. Our job is to quieten the mind so we can get to our true selves. So we drop into that stillness. We're sitting. Doesn't this sound like fun, by the way? So we're sitting with that uncomfortable feeling. We're dropping into that place. And we're sitting there and we're like, okay, why does this bug me, this person? I don't even know this person. Why did it bother me that they pulled in front? Didn't they see me? Aren't I seen? Aren't I important? Shouldn't I have had that place on the road? Shouldn't that have been my place? Shouldn't they have cared about me? And then you move from them to, what does this say about me? What do I think of myself? And what comes out of that, once you dig and dig and dig, is this feeling like I'm not enough. I'm not enough for this world. I don't have the right to drive down the street. I'm not good enough to drive down the street. So you're not done there, not with the fun, not by a long shot. Then you sit there and you pull that scab off. What does that mean? I'm not good enough, or I don't have the right, or people don't see me. Where does that come from? Where did I ever get that idea? And then you just sit with it. You don't try to force anything. You don't try to come up with things. You just sit with it and you say, okay, tell me. I surrender this to you. I feel like this. And the tears might come, and you might feel like you really want to move out of this situation. But this is where the bliss is. This is where the joy is. Because once you sit with that, and the answers start coming, it's because you believe this when that person said this. It's because you believe this situation. And it wasn't true. It wasn't, it's not true. Let it go. Heal it. Move on. So when we do that, that small self, that mind becomes smaller. It doesn't have the same power it does. It can't trigger you because you know exactly what it is. I'm ticked off, you cut me off. I know what that's about. There's me feeling not enough again, We understand our trigger. We don't have it, right? So you think about family members. They keep saying the same thing to you. And it's like every time I meet Uncle John, why does he bring up the same thing from when I'm like 20 years old and the one mistake I made? And, we all know what you're going to do. You're probably going to drop out of school again or drop out of the job. Like everything you do, you get a divorce. Oh, you're just like school. You dropped out. You're dropping out of this. And you just can't stand Uncle John showing up at any events. But the problem isn't Uncle John. The problem is Uncle John is a trigger to something you've never healed, something you've never taken care of, right? So here's our opportunity. Triggers are amazing. They're opportunities to work to get to the stillness. So you might be saying in your head right now, hey, April, I've gotten to that place. I know my triggers, but they're not going away. It keeps coming up. That feeling of not enough comes up again. That feeling of this is never going to happen for me. I'm never going to be abundant. I'm never going to have love. I'm not creative. I can't see any future. I'm at this age. All those things that the mind throws at us and that small self clings onto and gets a little bit bigger. That's where the stillness comes in. That's where the meditation comes in. And meditation isn't about just hearing things and getting to this nothing place. It is about seeing those thoughts and recognizing them as separate from what you are. They're just something the mind is throwing out. And in the stillness, when you say to Spirit, I can't do this. I just don't seem to be able to heal this one concept. I surrender it to you. I surrender Uncle John to you. I can't do it. And it's amazing what happens. Because if we truly let go, if we truly say, it's yours, it happens. It's amazing. And I'm not saying sort of hold on and then say a meditate or a treatment like, yes, Spirit, it's all yours, and not truly let go of it. So I heard this wonderful analogy is like the universe is a big puzzle. And when you do a treatment, it's like you have a piece of that puzzle that fits perfectly. You know, that final piece you put in. And you know it fits there. And you have that in your mind every time you do a treatment. Every time you set an intention, you have in your mind, this is the perfect puzzle piece for this. And you trust the universe has created the exact whole for it. But it comes in stillness. It comes in not doing anything. It comes in surrendering. And that is so hard for us when we're such doers and we're such seekers and we want more knowledge. And I'm sure we all are always looking, always reading, always studying. But how much time do we spend in silence, in the stillness with Spirit? We read about it, we talk about it, we sing about it, we dance about it. But how much time do we really just sit? In the silence, in the nothingness. So right now, if you choose, just close your eyes and think of a label you've given yourself, good or bad. Good or bad. Could be mom, could be anything. Could be psychic, could be worker, could be artist, could be nurse, whatever it is. And then pick a few other labels, creative, musical, whatever it is. And then see a table in front of you and put those labels down on the table. Just put them down. They're not you. They're things you've created, but they're not you. Not the true you. So see, what does it feel not to have that label? Do you feel lost? Do you feel worried? It was interesting when we did this, mother was the hardest label to put down. And yet, all those labels separate you from the one, from the divine. Every label we give ourselves is a separation. I'm this, I'm not that. I'm a gardener. I'm not the divine. I'm a mom, I'm not the divine. I'm a dad, I'm not the divine. It's a separation. And yet we're never separate. These labels that you put on the table, they come and go. One day you won't be a nurse. One day, hopefully you'll always be a gardener or an artist if that's what you do. But the other certain labels we put down, right? And certain labels we should, because they create the yeah buts in our life. Well, I do that, but I'm this. That doesn't exist in the stillness. It doesn't exist when you surrender. So, for examples, I've been 20 years trying to get our approach to we've got quite a long driveway, and our approach has been like this. Literally for 20 years, everybody would get terrified of backing out of our place. And they did the upper street So I'd written a letter about, I'm going all over the place, about 20 years ago. Wrote a letter to my counselor and said, this is crazy. People are trying to put their wheelchairs on our sidewalk and they're like falling down and this is crazy. And anyway, got a letter saying you're on the list. So our upper neighbor, or the upper part of the street got done. And they didn't do our street. So I was like, that's just awful. So I had literally just done this 2 weeks ago, where I decided I was no longer going to worry about this driveway. I was going to embrace the bottom part of it and was going to plant a bunch of things, and I had all my plans done, and it was like, it's great, whatever happens, happens. Got a letter yesterday. They're doing our street and our sidewalks and our approach, but I gave up on it. It was like, I didn't write a letter this year, I didn't talk about it. Every time I used to drive out of the driveway, and of course I'd see it, I'd say, oh, darn, when are they ever going to fix that? Or I'd see people with wheelchairs, when are they ever going to fix our sidewalk? And I talked to people about it that walked by. It was really a thing. And I just thought, you know what, I'm just going to surrender it. And there it went. There I got the letter. And that has happened so many times. I've just gone into that stillness and said, you know what, I've tried. I know that I've still got a block in this. I'm giving it to you because I don't have the awareness, I don't have what I need right now to get through it, but I know you do, and I know this is going to turn out perfectly. And that's our letting go part of our treatments, right? We set our affirmations and we set our intentions and we're, yeah, I so believe in this and I'm getting that house or I'm getting that guy or girl or, you know, I'm going to be creative, I'm going to write my book. And we're all good in that middle part, those affirmations. And then we kind of do gratitude, not too bad. Oh, I'm so grateful for blah, blah, blah. And then we hit let it go and it's kind of like an afterthought. And I let it go. And so it is. And it's kind of like an afterthought, but it is really, really important because that's the stillness, that's the surrender. I let it go. Can we all say that together? I let it go. Yeah. Can you imagine saying that when something comes up? Do the last step of treatment. Guy cuts you off. I let it go. Right? Friend brings up political conversations when you've just agreed you're not going to have a political conversation. I let it go. You come in and something's changed that you didn't like. I let it go. Right? So what would that feel like? To just not be the resistance for things that come up in your life that you have no control over. Other people, circumstances, positions. The computer went out. I think the power died on it. Yeah.
Let it go.
What?
Let it go.
Let it go. Yeah, there we go. Surrender. There, I don't know when they disappeared, but they disappeared. So there you go, right? Let it go. And there's a reason. It's only for you here that this message is going to be really, we'll just say, oh, too bad you missed the ending. It was just the most amazing thing April had ever said. My life has changed forever. And I want you all to put that on Facebook. But if I could say one thing, if there's one thing going into spring, and then Michael Beckwith says this all the time, when you have that irritation, when you have that judgment, when you have that anger or desperation to make something change, stop, go quiet, and ask yourself what is trying to emerge. What is Spirit trying to have come through you? Because that's what we're here for. We're here, Spirit, with Spirit for Spirit. So we're the divine having this wonderful experience in this wonderful body in this beautiful creative place so that Spirit can have the experience of us doing this. But sometimes we need to go into that stillness and find out what that is instead of thinking it's all the stuff we've been told all our lives we're to be, how we're supposed to act, and etc. I tell you, the most fun you can have here is getting rid of constructs or challenging them. You know, why does it have to be that way? Who said you had to do this? Who wrote that rule? Who wrote the rule of no white shoes after September? Like, what twit did that one? You know, like all these things that we tell each other. Like, you know, I've had people say, oh, you really shouldn't wear white shoes after Labor Day. It's like totally inappropriate. Who said? And why do I care? And it doesn't trigger me, right? Because it's nothing to do with who I truly am, which is not white shoes, which is not 5'2", which is none of these things. It's divine nothingness. And I love being nothing. And I hope you will embrace it too. And so it is.